Ada because I, 29 male, told my sister to get over herself for the way she was acting about our baby nephew. Both Lori, 25 female, and Nat, 31 female, are completely nonverbal with one another. In the end, it was all the fault of a scheming, treacherous former boyfriend. Nat realized he was a serial cheat more than a year and a half after the fact. Lori happened to be one of the ladies with whom he was having an affair at the time of his confession to her. But neither had any notion what the other was talking about. The fact that Nat never brought her ex-boyfriend to meet the family eliminated any possibility that it was him. Lori, on the other hand, did not terminate her connection with him when she discovered she was pregnant, which was the source of their quarrel. Lori's father, Nat's ex-husband, died in a vehicle accident while she was 7 months pregnant with their son, Nat. 4 months have passed since the birth of my nephew. However, Lori is not faring as well as she may be. PPD was discovered to exist in her. She had been getting aid, but there had been an unforeseen occurrence, and she is just not in the right location at the right time right now. I'm 29-year-old male, now caring for my nephew, and have been doing so for more than 2 months while my mother is with Lori and her family. For the next 3 weeks, Nat will be staying with me, and she isn't having a good time. She doesn't interact with my nephew at all, which is fair considering the fact that he is a baby and that I am responsible for him. But the way she acts, it's a source of irritation for me. While sitting on his swing or cot, she thinks to herself, "He's so ugly. I'm glad I didn't have any children with that piece of her ex." He receives dirty looks or comments, and no one wants to touch or engage with him. His hunger will lead him to scream, and she will urge him to shut up already, or that he whines worse than X's name, among other things. I pleaded with her to refrain from making snarky comments about a real baby. Due to the fact that he is a baby and does not understand what is going on, she does not notice the major issue. Then he brings up his father's treatment of her, blaming Lori for having a child for all that has happened. It's true that she is free to feel whatever she wants about our sister, but I don't like her animosity toward my nephew. The problem isn't even that she doesn't like babies. She's just different from our other niece and our younger cousins. She just does not like him because of Lori and her ex-husband. Despite my best efforts, I believe this morning was the turning point in my attitude. In the middle of the night, my nephew was weeping because he was hungry, and I had just gotten up from the couch to give him something to eat. Because she was nearby, I asked her if she would mind taking his burp cloth off the table and putting it in my bag. It was her reply that she is not touching anything that he has touched that drew attention. I was a little annoyed at the time, and I remember telling her that she needed to grow up and get over herself because this was an innocent baby, and she did. She had been duped, which was unfortunate, but life moves on and she is not the center of attention. For a long time, this has been everything I've wanted to say, but I've been trying to be empathetic in light of what has transpired. The fact that Nat didn't say anything to me today is a positive indication. Nat, according to my mother, dialed her phone and sobbed. Despite the fact that we don't agree on how she's treating the kid, she feels I've been much too cruel in light of all she's gone through. I've been duped before, so I understand how it feels. This, on the other hand, really annoyed me. Ada. Story 2. Ada for not telling my old therapist I wanted to see someone new. Just to give you some background, my husband, 34 years old, has been telling me, 38 years old, for a year that my therapist is increasing my anxiety. Weeping, I used to tell myself that I was a bad partner and wife because she had me convinced that when my husband returned home from work, he should never have to lift a finger, and that asking him to do things like take out the trash was unreasonable since I stayed at home and he worked. When I tried to convince him that he didn't want me to be a mother and instead wanted to be a partner, he said he couldn't since he could contribute by taking on some of my obligations. He has bipolar disease, and when I'm down, I don't keep up on the house as much as I should, and she believes it's unfair that he has to pick up the slack because when he comes home, I should have everything perfect and be completely responsible for him. I was conflicted, which added to my sense of unease and unease. He ultimately convinced me to end my relationship with her, and I officially ended my relationship with her in December. However, I had just started college, and I was feeling quite overwhelmed because I'm not very good at online learning. By late February, I'd stopped beating myself up for not being the ideal housewife or for not anticipating his every need before he had it, but I was also feeling quite overwhelmed because I am not very good at online learning. I was experiencing level 10 anxiety at the prospect of speaking with my therapist, so I decided to take use of the school's counseling services instead. This was something I didn't tell my therapist about. I couldn't bring myself to face her just yet. During my meetings with this new person, I developed a strong attachment to her. My former therapist's office phoned me yesterday to set up an appointment for the following week. I told the receptionist that I had made the choice to see someone else instead of returning to the office. My former therapist called me on the phone and spent 20 minutes berating me, thus I assume I was on speakerphone throughout this conversation. That it was unethical for meeting a new person without first notifying her, that all I wanted was for someone to say poor Erwin, and that I didn't want to get well were all things I heard. The fact that she now knew how my husband feels when I shut down because I had done the same to her, the fact that I was rude, and the fact that I just didn't like how she delivered the harsh facts. Then she said she'd talk with my therapist, who works in the same office, and he may terminate me as a result of my behavior. Are you mad at me for not telling her that I was thinking about dating someone else? Simply put, I was putting off talking to her because I was so afraid about it. I should have just swallowed it up and said something sooner rather than later. Since her phone conversation, I've been in a bad mood, despite the fact that my husband claims I'm not. Edit. After I went to bed, this blew up. I'm trying to react to everyone, but it's impossible. This has really helped a lot, and it has made me understand how awful of a therapist she is. I'm going to talk to my new therapist about it, and we'll figure out what to do next. I'll provide an update after I've spoken with her. Update. As a first, my husband would want to exclaim vindication in his best Captain Holt voice, and I would like to convey my appreciation to everyone who has shown their support. It gave me with a great deal of food for thought. Now for the most recent information. Monday, I saw my primary care physician, who informed me that he was okay with continuing to provide my prescriptions if my psychiatric treatment was terminated due to what old therapist had said. In order to find out whether he was abandoning me since I wasn't seeing her anymore, I contacted my therapist and asked him straight. Guys, he was caught completely by surprise. She hadn't spoken anything to him in a long time, so I gave him a quick overview, to which he reacted angrily. According to him, he has no idea why she would ever tell me that he would dump me, and that whether or not I saw her had nothing to do with me and his feelings for her. When it comes to my therapist, he doesn't care who it is as long as they are helping me. So fortunately, everything worked out. And if I do decide to discontinue that practice, I will at the very least have a contingency plan in place. Something tells me she didn't expect me to say anything to him, and that she was counting on my not upsetting the apple cart by saying anything. This morning, I went to visit my new therapist and informed her about what had happened, and she was irate. Several of the points she raised were reinforced by her, including the notion that old therapist was manipulating me in treatment, the notion that sharing all of this with other people present is a major HIPAA violation, and the notion that old therapist was the unethical one, not me. She and I are working through my feelings of guilt and trauma, and we're getting closer to the point where I'll feel comfortable reporting her to the authorities. It was all extremely helpful, and I would feel horrible if she did this to someone who didn't have the same support structure that I had, and they ended up hurting themselves as a consequence. I simply need some space to go through some of the old feelings that this has resurfaced for me throughout the process. Once again, thank you so much. It was quite beneficial in keeping me grounded and preventing me from going over the edge.